Heading out on our own with our hope in the clouds, and we're starting to see that we're onto something. Feel it coming, we'll keep running, nothing in our way, and we got no reason to wait. Let the journey take you where it wants to. We'll continue to find our way through anything we face. We got what it takes. Here we go. All we need is an open road and a chance to see a never-ending world that's beautiful. Here we go, with the sunlight on our skin. It's a brand new day, it's ours to take, and we will let it in. This is where the adventure begins.
So today we thought we would sit down and just kind of intro the property, sort of our background as to why we wanted to move out to the country and sort of what led us to wanting to be out there. So Kelsey is along today. She hasn't done a lot of talking as to what she wants to do out on the property, just me and all of my grass work and all that stuff. So, how long do you think we were probably looking for moving?
I think we started looking for a property probably before we even bought our house here in town. I mean...
Yeah, we used to live we rented a house that was on about an acre, and it was sort of on the edge of town, and so we got used to that kind of lifestyle of...
And we loved taking care of it. That was the thing. Like, that was what we did. When the weekends came, we would go outside, and it had kind of been overgrown, had been sitting for a while, the house that we were renting, and so we did a lot of cleanup and invested a lot of elbow grease into it and really enjoyed the results, which I think kind of led us to start looking. Mm-hmm. But of course, we're young, and that's not what we could afford, and it wasn't highly available, and so we ended up buying in town.
Yep.
And I don't think we ever stopped the search.
Right. Living in town has been fine too. Of course, we've done a lot to our property here, and a lot has changed over time, and so that gave us a lot of practice probably.
Yeah.
In terms of trying different projects or, just trying different things and learning different things. But we continued to look throughout all of that time. I would say it's been probably at least 5 years of being pretty serious about, something came up, or we're driving along the highway and we're like, oh, there's something for sale. Have we seen that one before? Most of the time we know now. We're like, that used to be for sale. We saw that. And
I do think it was probably, I know it was January, and I think it was maybe 2019, where we actually legitimately scheduled time to sit down with the realtor that ended up helping us get our new property. But it's probably been a solid 2 years of searching. Yep. Actually getting active listings and taking a look, and some of them you opened up and you're like, oh, let's go look at this one, and then you'd say, can you schedule a time, and you'd find out it's gone. And so it was a pretty difficult and kind of tear you down task to try and find something. Yeah,
the market is obviously really crazy pretty much everywhere, but you would think that, people would always ask me when I said, I'm looking for land in Iowa, and they're like, isn't there a lot of land everywhere? It should be pretty easy to find. I'm like, yeah, there is, but, most of it's farmland. That stuff goes for a lot of money because it's for farming. And so we had to find something that we wanted that was going to be something that we could do some farm type stuff on, but we weren't really going for crop land. We were going for having some woods and some different features to it.
Right. Legitimately, we're on a report from our realtor, and I think it's automated what time that the listings come out, but I think I saw one pop up in email maybe 8:30 in the morning, and I thought, okay, when Ryan's available, we'll go take a look at this and get right on it. And by the time 10 o'clock even rolled around that morning, it was off the listing. So it was just... Yes, there's a lot of land and there are a lot of opportunities, but you have to be able to act immediately. And, we have a lot of wants and things that we were looking for in our property that I think I call us thinking people. Like we want to be able to make sure that what's available fits into what we want to do with it, because otherwise you work against it.
Yeah.
You obviously you're not going to get everything on your list, but
Right.
you want something that's going to fit into what you want to do with it.
And that kind of goes into the interesting story of how we actually found this piece of property and had to kind of look at our list, but it was during the middle of the winter time, and it was really, really cold here, one of the coldest parts of the winter, and so we...
Probably the first time I've ever been grateful for a polar vortex.
Yeah, so we found it, we told our realtor, which he happens to really like winter, which is a good thing too, and we went out there and we were like, can we just walk around? And so, we knew the driveway was long. We made our way all the way up to the driveway, and we kind of got to that opening of where the gate starts. And of course, everything was under snow at that point. And so we just kind of had to get a vision of what we thought it was going to be. We walked a little bit to where our sort of camp area is right now, and we sort of saw how that waterway goes through there. And we're like, okay, this would be really cool to have this cleaned out and have a little spot to be by the water. And so it was just kind of go for it at that point. We didn't know exactly what everything looked like. We weren't able to walk the rest of it, and just made a decision.
Yeah. I think even in the winter though, it ticked off a lot of the things that were really important to us, that when you get on a piece of property, you can sometimes fix certain things, but you can't fix everything. And one of them being how far away from the road it is. That was a big thing for me because, we have animals, and I never really understood why you'd live out in the country and live 100 feet off of the gravel road. And so it's perfect because it has a nice long lane. It has privacy to where the lane leads up to the land. And that was, those are the kinds of things that you could tell even in the wintertime when you weren't really looking at it directly, that we knew it was right. Yeah,
and it had, we really wanted some decent trees on there. We found that, maybe there's a few more junk trees than we really anticipated or hoped, but...
Junk or terrifying.
Yeah, but so those are things that, you can't have absolutely everything that you necessarily want unless you want to just wait and wait and wait. And so we were at that point of, we kind of need to make a decision if we want to do this. And so it's not been anything terrible. We still have plenty to dig into. The main part of the sort of woods area, we haven't even really gone in and explored everything yet. There's too much brush. So we'll find out what we have, and we can still plant some decent trees and stuff that we want. So
I also think that it's a little bit misleading right now because there are so many of these trees and so much thick brush underneath that the trees, the growth is all at the top, and they don't look as full because everything's kind of been shaded out. And I think once we get things start to clean up, you'll get to see actually the beauty of a lot of what's out there. So
but here in Iowa, we have a lot of nice, like really old oak trees in certain areas. And so that's kind of what we were hoping we were going to have some. I don't know that we necessarily do, but that's okay. So I talked about some of the grass stuff that I was going to do on my lawn channel, and I just thought we'd give Kelsey an opportunity to kind of go over some of the things that she envisions with her gardening side and some of the things that I'm going to start to learn on that side of it too. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's funny. We were driving home from being out of town, and I know it was late because I was doing this in the dark. When we bought this property, everybody said, well, what are your intentions with it? What do you want to do with it? And we're like, well, we don't know. We've never lived out in the country, either one of us, even growing up as kids. We always had an affinity for it, being out on properties with friends and family and things like that. But we don't know if we were built to live out there or not. Right. So we said, well, we'll get out there and we'll test it out. And gosh, we had been out there maybe once or twice. We hadn't owned it for more than a week, maybe. And I was on the way home, Ryan was driving, so I was kind of mapping things out. And I said, well, here's where, you want a golf course spot. So here's where we could put, green, and here's where we could put test plots. And then I laid out all these other things. I want a cherry orchard, and I want apple trees, and I want a huge berry garden, and opportunities to expand my garden from the 20 by 10 that I have to just grow anything that I want to preserve. I have a lot of things I want to do with that. Love to have chickens, would love to have some farm animals of some kind. We're finding that cattle and or goats would be really helpful to have as far as a maintenance side of things, and just keeping the grass under control. And so having some kind of animals out there, and then always wanting room for rescue opportunities for dogs, for animals, for those little creatures that steal your heart, and you like, well, we have 600 square feet of space to share with them. What are we going to do? Our main living area. Yeah. At some point, you just can't add more living beings in your house without it being uncomfortable. So just having the space to really get out there and do some of the things we wanted to do. And I said, okay, here, what do you think of this layout? And you said, well, I guess it looks like we're moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a lot of dreams of things that I want to do. We had a cherry tree on the property that we rented, and I fell in love with harvesting the fruit and seeing it go from blossom through pies. I mean, through the whole process. And as I've developed more and more of my garden plan, I've just seen things that we use on a daily basis, or even we use throughout the year, that I can preserve. I don't have to go buy everything that we need. I can make ourselves a little bit more self-sufficient, and we can really use the resources of the land and become a little bit more self-sustaining. And that really is exciting to me.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to do that. Plus, if you've seen any of the gardening videos that we've done, I just like to experiment with things. I mean, who doesn't like to see if they can make something happen, come from a seed, and then put it on the table? That's really what my goal is. So I want a lot of space to be able to try a few things.
Yeah. Yeah, we both grew up, of course, you not that far from here, and me just, in southern Minnesota. And so it's all the Midwest still. This is the type of life that we grew up with, being out in the country with friends or with family, like you said, spending time. But we just need some time to learn some things yet, too, for sure, on our own. And that's kind of part of the journey and what we want to capture for someone that maybe is watching and hasn't lived in this area or is trying something new. That's kind of what we want to be able to, show people as we learn as well. So I think that's the exciting part about it. We don't have any set plans as to when everything is going to happen necessarily. There's lots of different timelines, I think, in our head, but there's a lot of budgeting involved in all of that stuff. So we'll just see how it goes.
I think that there's also, I mentioned I consider us to be thinking people. We don't like to just dive into something. I mean, there are a lot of times where taking a risk is the right thing to do, and jumping, feet in the water and just going for it is the thing to do. But I want to do things correctly. I don't want to get out there and tear down trees that don't need to be torn down, or I don't want to get out there and put up a structure somewhere where it's not going to work. So you really have to kind of think through, how do you want to use this land, and where is it going to work best to do these things? What areas need to be protected? What areas serve better purpose than what you initially thought? And so I want to do the land justice, and to be able to say, we've really thought this through, and we really understand what we can give back to it and what we can take from it. And so I think that's part of it for me. So 2 months it's been since we've purchased it, and I remember being out there going, oh yeah, I know the grass is gonna grow, not a big deal. But when we just were out there this last few days, I'm pretty certain that some of that grass is 8 feet tall.
Yeah, it is.
I'm short, but this is really, really tall.
It is, yeah. So there's some stuff coming in with that soon, as far as, we might just rent some equipment to get started on a few areas that we can start to clean some things. We're not going to be removing, cleaning the land completely by any means. It's going to be a lot of native stuff and trying to introduce some things back into there, maybe prairie-wise eventually. So it's going to be exciting stuff. We hope that you sort of enjoy the journey with us, and that's kind of it for our little talk here on the intro, but wanted to have Kelsey come on and actually talk sort of her plan and what we wanted to do with it.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching, everybody. The ones that are ripe, basically you almost just touch them and they just fall off.